Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Letter of Law Interviews. My name is Sarthak Bhardwaj, and today I am absolutely delighted, thrilled, excited, and so very honored to be in conversation with Ms. Susanah Naushad. First of all, ma'am, thank you so much for taking the time out and being here with us all the way from USA.
Come on. Thank you so much for having me.
Right. So before we get started, to all the viewers, I'll give a quick introduction about ma'am. Ma'am graduated from NUJS Kolkata and thereafter worked as a litigator in courts around Delhi for about a year. After that, ma'am went on to join Khaitan Co, where she worked as a principal associate for more than 5 years. After her time at Khaitan, ma'am moved to the USA, where she obtained her master's from Columbia Law School. Ma'am has also recently qualified the New York bar examination and is presently working as a litigation associate in a New York-based law firm. And that is not all. Ma'am is also a published author with a book on white-collar crimes published. I'll link that in the description, so be sure to check that out. So, ma'am, that's a whole lot. I mean, do you ever look back and think it's been less than 8 years for me in the profession and I've done so much? Do you ever feel like you've arrived?
Okay, firstly, thank you so much for that great introduction. Even I didn't know I'd done so many things. And please call me Susanna. I actually feel like a dinosaur if someone calls me ma'am. I'm
All
really
right.
not that old. I may look old, but
No.
yeah, I do. I think it's been like great. I don't think there's ever any time to really think how much one has done or whatever. It's
Right.
just like you do one thing, then you move on to something better or something else. So yeah, to answer your question, no, I never really think, wow, how much have I done or whatever. It no, that doesn't happen really.
That's really modest of you, ma'am. But ma'am, the way I like to start my conversations is by asking the guests to introduce them in a way that they think describes them the best. Of course, the introduction I gave of you is based upon your LinkedIn profile and whatever I could find about you on the
Yeah.
internet. But how do you like to introduce yourself?
I would like to introduce myself in the exact same manner, exactly the same factual background that you give. I graduated from NUJS in 2014, and after that, I decided to do litigation. I don't think I ever wanted to do like a corporate law, like a transactional role,
Right.
because while in NUJS, I did like several internships,
Mhm.
and a lot of those I think most of my law firm internships were litigation internships, except for I think one or two internships which were corporate internships. In fact, ironically, my Khaitan internship was a corporate internship,
Okay.
and they immediately put me on a due diligence.
Hmm.
And I mean, what can I say? It was really not a pleasant experience. And I quickly realized that I didn't want to be like a transactional lawyer.
Right.
So after that, since, like as a young law graduate, you're also very like idealist.
Hmm.
And so I felt that maybe I should get to know the nitty-gritties of the trial process better, how the courts function. I'll get to go to courts. So I joined Mr. Ramesh Gupta, who basically practices criminal law
Yeah.
in the trial courts, the Delhi High Court, of course, which was a great experience. I worked with him for a year. Um, a lot of great matters. There was a lot of going to courts, a lot of seeing, like these final arguments. But I just felt that, after a point, I wasn't, to be very honest, I wasn't happy with the compensation,
Right.
because like every, as law students will know, like chamber practice doesn't pay very well.
Right.
And when I realized that so I always knew that, but when I realized what is the difference between what law firms were paying and what chamber practice was paying, after a point you start questioning whether that interesting work is even worth it.
Right.
And because when you're young, you also want to, like, you want to enjoy your life, you want to travel a bit, you want to check out, say, the best restaurants with your friends, and you don't want to ask your parents for money, because
Right.
after a point is just amazing. So while I had a great experience there, and I would like to say that the work that I did during my chamber stint was actually way more interesting than the work I actually ended up doing in a law firm,
Mhm.
because law firm is also a lot of advisory work. You don't really go to court so much. You're not so much mixed with the trial process. But I just took a decision and I moved to Khaitan.
Right.
And Khaitan was also, of course, like a great experience. I think Khaitan, I think I eventually stayed in Khaitan for about 5.5 years. Uh, and it shaped my career in more ways than one. So I think I'll always be grateful to that firm, really good firm, where I joined as a junior associate in the litigation department. And as a junior associate, I mean, people don't have any leeway in the work they are given. So like I did like literally everything under the sun. We did like a lot of consumer matters, bankruptcy matters, lots of arbitrations, civil commercial matters. But eventually, like as you become more senior in the firm, they ask you to specialize. And at that point of time, the partner that I was working with, he was doing some great white collar matters and some investigations. So I got on board, and that's how I got into the white collar crime space. And once I started doing those matters, I anyway had some criminal law background because I'd worked with Mr. Ramesh Gupta before. So I think that kind of became my specialization. I don't know how it happened. I don't think there was like one day when I woke up and decided that this will be my specialization. I think it just happened organically over a period of time because I just kept doing one matter after the other. And after a point, you just get involved in so many matters that's what I think at one point I was just doing white collar matters exclusively. So yeah, that was my Khaitan stint, and I left Khaitan, I think, as a principal associate but I'd just like become a principal associate at that point of time. So just when the responsibilities were getting too much, I left.
Right. And ma'am, I'd like to quickly pitch in here and unpack a little bit from what you've said. Ma'am, what was it like transitioning from a litigation chamber to a law firm? Because on LinkedIn and in my own senior law school space, I see that a lot of people switch from a firm to a litigation side. That's the more routine path that I witness. And to my knowledge, there's not a lot of examples of people going from litigation to firm. So what was it like for you? Because in litigation, I'm sure you were running from one court to another, doing a whole lot of drafting and other things. So was it a bit more relaxed in the firm, but the hours were perhaps a bit more? What was it like to transition?
I would say it was relaxed. Definitely, I think both chamber practice and law firms are equally strenuous because of the work hours and the stress that's involved. The kind of work kind of changes. Like I said, when you are in a chamber practice, you're going to courts every day. And in law firms, especially if you're doing like some investigations, there were like months when I didn't go to court. And so it's just something that it's a personal decision you need to take, whether that's the kind of work you want to do and you're okay with doing, or if you genuinely like, you're so interested in litigation that you would rather be in courts every day.
Yeah.
Even in terms of when I was in chambers, we used to draft a lot. So we used to draft, file, stuff like that. Whereas in a law firm, there is a lot of, we draft memos basically. So there's a lot of advisory work that's going on. So that's pretty much it. Also, law firms have way more hierarchy. I don't think like a lawyer's chamber has so much hierarchy. You draft one thing, and a lot of times nobody even checks like what the heck you have drafted, and that gets filed. Whereas in a law firm, whatever I drafted as a junior associate was first seen by the senior associate, then the principal associate will see it. It will eventually go to the partner who will review everything, and then finally it goes to the client. Right. So I feel like my drafting improved considerably when I was working in a law firm because you get like feedback. And like as you keep working on these drafts, your drafts become better. Like, small things that, the font has to be uniform. Just everything in your drafts, it becomes, I think if you're working with somebody, like I was working with a partner who was very particular about the way we drafted, like there could be no mistakes at all. So my drafts became like, I think 100x better as compared to what I was drafting in the chambers, because in the chamber, like in chamber practice, nobody really cares about, say, language, the punctuation, stuff like that. So that is one major difference. But I always think it's a personal decision. It depends on what you're interested in, what you want. I do agree with you that most people leave law firms to do chamber practice, but I also know a lot of people who left law firms to do chamber practice and then they came back to law firms because they were like, we can't do chamber practice. It's just it's kind of chaotic. And if you are a first generation lawyer, it may be very difficult for you to find your feet because you don't have like a godfather.
Right.
But in a law firm, you just have to be like hardworking, competent. It really doesn't matter if like your parent is a partner, it really doesn't matter. You will climb up the ladder if you do well.
Right. Now I'm coming back to your decision to move abroad. Like you said, you had just become a principal associate at Khaitan. So of course you had worked extremely hard to be at that point. And I'm sure life was good for you here. You were getting established. So how did you decide to leave all that behind and take the plunge to go and do your master's abroad?
I think that decision also had to do something with my practice area.
Okay.
So like I said, by the end of it, I'd started specializing in white collar crime investigations. And when we were doing a lot of these investigations or matters, even advisory work, I realized that everything in the white collar space actually had become transnational. So like a small bribe that you pay in a small town in India may have FCPA, which is the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. It's a US statute. It may have FCPA repercussions, or it may have UK Bribery Act repercussions for these companies, because most of these companies are subsidiaries of US or UK based companies. And therefore, we were constantly working with US lawyers or UK lawyers, and it was always a team effort. So I just, after a point, realized that maybe I was just limiting myself to one jurisdiction, which is India. And the FCPA, which is right now, it's the largest global enforcement action in the world. It's actually a US statute. And as just an India qualified lawyer, I could never practice FCPA. I could not give an advice. I can give like an informal advice, but I cannot give a written advice because I'm not US qualified. So I felt that just in order to enhance my skill set, I would probably have to move to a different jurisdiction and get some international experience. So
Right.
with that in mind, I applied to 3 jurisdictions for my LL.M. And eventually, like, US was a natural choice because, like I said, FCP is a US statute, and that's eventually what I wanted to do.
Now, ma'am, I have two connected questions and I'll take them one by one. First, there's a lot of people who choose to do their LLMs right after they finish law school. And then there are people like you who have considerable experience and then they go. And then the second criteria, the second group of people, of course, have a more well thought out plan of what they want from their LLM degree. What do you suggest for all the students watching? Should they give themselves a few years into the profession to work and figure out what is it that they actually want to study, or should they go right after their law school?
I don't think there's any straitjacket formula for this, but if you would ask me, I feel that you should definitely work for a couple of years, and to just try to figure out what are the subjects you're interested in, what practice area you're interested in. Now, a major difference between how the US law schools work, which is the JD program, which is their LLB equivalent, and in India, is that in India, we start law school right after class 12th.
Right.
Now, you're just like a kid right then. And 5 years, mostly people like don't like give a jack. People are just having fun. And then mostly people join law firms, and then they finally get like serious about what they want to do, their careers, And most people, after graduating law school as well, they are kind of clueless about what is the specialization or what kind of law they want to do. Mostly people only know whether they want to do litigation or corporate law. That's it, right? Whereas in the US, what I saw was that since they have to do, I think, 4 years of undergrad, then a lot of people work for some time, and then law school is a graduate school. So by the time they're in law school, they already have a lot of clarity about what field they want to go into. Yeah. So in that situation, if you take I think if you just do an LL.M. right after you graduate, say college, you will still be clueless about what you want. And an LL.M. is like more like, it's like a specialized, it's a master's course. So it has to be more specialized. Like my LL.M. was in criminal law. Yeah. Because since I'd worked for like so many years, I knew exactly what I was interested in and what are the subjects I wanted to take. Whereas I felt that there were some people who were right out of law school and they were just trying to figure out what they like. So they were taking up random subjects, ki, ye le lete hain, shayad interesting hoga, stuff like that. Right. So all I'm saying is that when you're paying so much for a course, you should get like you should make the most out of it. And I feel like, and this also may be personal, I'm not saying that somebody who's 23 will be clueless. Maybe like it's case to case basis, but mostly I think if you're 24 and doing an LLM, I really don't know what benefit you will be able to derive out of it. Or maybe you won't be able to derive as much benefit as you would if you had probably worked for like 2-3 years and then gone.
Right. Now I'm moving on. So you had been a principal associate here. You have litigation experience. What was it like to be a student after 7, 8 years into the profession? Was it challenging, or did you enjoy the little respite that it brought? What was it like for you?
I think it was challenging also in a lot of ways because in law school, we used to write these long articles. When we started working, those articles got shorter and shorter and very like practical based articles. But when I went back to law school in the US, I was again expected to write some 30-page articles. And I was like, I cannot do this. This is too much research. It's a transition. It's also sometimes it's good. Like for me, I really enjoyed it because I feel like there were certain the field that I'm in, white collar, I think the US law is kind of more pronounced in that field as compared to Indian law. Indian law is still like at like a nascent stage. So I feel like there are a lot of issues that we were grappling with in India, and I took exactly those courses in the US, and so it helped me better my understanding of those issues and how we can take probably certain factors from the US legal system to solve those issues in India. So it was academically, of course, it was interesting. From a practical standpoint, it is kind of difficult because it's a transition.
Mm.
Theoretically, like maybe some skills that I have are transferable. Maybe
Right.
like the internal investigations that I did in India would be transferable there. But if you like trial, it was completely new for me. I did an internship at the district attorney's office, and that was actually the first time I saw like the jury. Like I had only seen a jury before that in like TV shows,
Yeah.
right? Like that was the first time I saw a jury system in play. So it's just the system is so different from our system in India that sometimes you also feel like kind of irritated because you don't know the nitty gritties. And like after a point, like after an age, it gets annoying to not know. Like if you're
Mm.
23 and you don't know, you will be like, okay, I'll learn. It doesn't matter. But after an age, you're just like, I should be knowing this. Why do I not know? These are basics.
Mm.
So I think both good and bad, but I would say the experience was really, really good. World-class professors. I think at least like just the experience of meeting the best minds from all across the world. This is literally a way you can meet people from all the countries. Otherwise, where else do you get that chance? And just the experience of living in a new country, in a different city, all by own. It's. I think it was all very great.
Fantastic. So, ma'am, when you went to the USA to obtain your LLM, was your thought always to try to then qualify as a lawyer there, or were your original plans to return to India? What were your thoughts and motivations, and when did you finally decide to, prepare for the New York bar exam?
So like I said, my purpose of doing the LLM was to practice FCPA.
Mm-hmm.
So I always had this in mind that I will find a job and start practicing there because that would be my best case scenario. I think none of us started studying for the New York bar after our course ended because the LLM course is also, it takes a lot of your time. It can be very overwhelming because there's too many things going on. Uh, the the teaching like the pedagogy is very different. Like in India, it's basically we have a lecture system where like some professor will come give a lecture mostly,
Right.
doesn't really care listening, not listening, and then that professor leaves.
Mm-hmm.
But in the US, there's so many readings that you need to do, and if you don't know the readings, you won't really get much in class, so it'll be a waste of a class. So we were always like grappling with that, then doing our papers, then doing internships. So I think most of us prepared for you need to I think register for the bar in September to give the bar in July, and we started studying in May when we graduated.
I see. Ma'am, then what was it like to prepare for the bar exam? Because I've
It
heard
was
that
It was horrible.
Do you
It
want to
was
take us through the process?
it was the worst
Oh God.
experience. I cannot stress it enough. It's the worst kind of an exam. And I think it was horrible across the board. I do
Mhm.
not know anybody, who said that no, it was okay. It was like, forget pleasant. People, like, I've seen get anxiety attacks.
Wow.
It's really, and especially coming from India, like the bar in India is really a joke. And the bar exam, I mean, we always knew, we had heard that the New York bar is very tough, of course, but you really get the feel of it when you start studying for it. And that's because we just don't know the basic laws of this country.
Oh, oh,
If you study for 3 years and do a JD from the US, you are taught most of those courses.
right.
So for you, that would be a revision.
Hmm.
For us, because like LLM is a specialization, like I only focused on criminal law and procedure, right? But I did not do constitutional law. I don't know contract law. I don't know property. And then there are some subjects that we have never done. Like I've not even done in India, like trust, wills. There's something called secure transactions. It's just madness. And you have
Right.
to mug up all of this in about 6 to 7 weeks. There
Wow.
is and there's a subjective portion of the exam, and then there's an objective portion of the exam, so you can't faff. If it was just objective, which is a multiple choice, you could at least take a guess.
Right, right.
But like, in the subjective portion, what will you do? So it's just really, really horrible. I think most of us studied for uh I don't know, 9 to 10 hours every day. No weekends. We would not go out anywhere. It's that kind of an exam. Like if you don't give it your all, it's kind of difficult to pass.
Right.
So it's very, very, yeah, very anxiety inducing exam. It's like one of those exams that even if you get like a really high score on the exam, on the day of the exam, you will still be crying because you will just be like, I don't know what I've done. It's just that it's horrible, but I'm just so glad that it's over.
And congratulations that you emerged victorious at the end of that journey.
Thank you so much.
That's
Thank
a
you so
great
much. I'm
achievement.
glad I don't have to give this. I can't give any more exams now. I think I'm done with exams for the rest of my life. I'm done now.
Right. Ma'am, just to touch upon a few practical aspects of it for the viewers who might be interested, what is the visa requirement like? I mean, once your LLM is done, does the visa still permit you to stay on for a couple of months to write the bar exam? What are those kind of things like? Just for anyone who wants to do this, this will be useful for them.
Yeah. So the visa requirement is basically while you are doing your LLM, you are on something called as the F1 visa, which is the student visa. After that, you can work in the country for 1 year.
Okay.
Uh, so it's called optional practical training. You get the OPT, which is easily obtainable. You just like need to fill out some forms and you will get the OPT for a year. After the OPT ends, like my OPT will technically end next year, July. Your firm, basically the law firm that you're working, or whoever, maybe you're working with some employer, that employer needs to sponsor your visa for H1B. And that is a complete lottery. So the US immigration system is kind of a mess. It really doesn't depend on the salary you're earning. It doesn't depend on the law school that you went to. It doesn't depend on anything. It's a complete lottery. And I think the chances of you getting that are usually 33% or something like that, or 40% maximum. But if you don't, like if your name doesn't get picked up in the lottery, usually it's not like the road is over for you. If you're working in like a good law firm, most law firms, they transfer you to say another jurisdiction like London.
I see.
You will work there for about a year and they will get you back on L1 visa. So L1 visa stands for intra-company transfer. But the issue with L1 visa is that you usually have to stick to the same employer because it's an intra-company transfer. So if you get the H1B well and good, then you can obviously, I think you can stay here for, I think it's applicable for about 3 years. If you don't, then you basically your company or law firm will transfer you to London, get you back. Now, the trick is in all this that during the OPT period, you can stay obviously till the bar exam, but after the bar exam ends, you need to find a job in the next 3 months.
Wow.
If you do not find a job, you cannot show that you are gainfully employed. in say law, then you will have to go back. So OPT is technically only for 3 months. Once you can show a job, then you can extend it for a year. Otherwise, you'll have to go back.
That's very useful information. Thank you so much for that. Now, ma'am, coming to the job part, from my conversation with people who've been on the podcast, and other than that, also outside of the podcast, the general presumption is that landing a job, even after qualifying the bar exam, can be a very difficult process because you're competing with people who have done, like you said, the JD in USA. So they're obviously, I mean, at least on paper, better qualified to understand the legal system of USA. So how did you personally go about getting the job in the firm where you're working presently? And how do you suggest others can also try to land a job after qualifying the bar exam?
Yeah, so this is actually very important, and nobody told us this. Definitely nobody told me this when I came here. It's very, very difficult to find a job in litigation in the US. It's I think it's almost next to impossible. So I think most of your viewers are students, and I would tell them that this is extremely important. That if you want to do an LLM to get a job, please plan beforehand and go into like do something like M&A or capital markets, even if you don't like it. Because if you do litigation, if you have a litigation background, you will not get a job. So that is one very important thing, because I don't know why that distinction is there. Somebody from the same firm in India with the same number of experience as me will, and doing M&A though, will get like a job. The chances of that person getting a job are 10x more than mine, but they don't take litigators. So that is very important. Secondly, here, unless you have some great connects, I'm not sure who has great connects in the US, but you just have to reach out to partners directly. You have to reach out to maybe senior associates directly to see if they can push your CV. And it's through a process what we call cold emails. Even if you don't know somebody, you can just write to them. Their information is available in the law firm's website. So you can see the kind of work they do, and you can just take out, you can just take their email ID, email them saying that, I'm really interested in the work you do, and this is similar to what I did in India. Now, this is again very important. That is why I said that you should always get some work experience before going for your LLM, because the only reason they will take an LLM over a JD is if you can show them that you are better than a JD. And how can you show them that? You can only show it to them by saying that I have so much experience that I will be better than a JD any day. Although I'm an LLM, but since I have 7 years of experience, just by virtue of that experience, I will know more than a JD. Right. So if you have zero experience, then like there is no, why will they take, say, an Indian over an American? Because they have visa issues also, right? They'll have to sponsor your visa. You may not get the visa eventually. They may have to transfer you. So why will they take your burden when they can easily take like an American student? So I think you just need to market your skill set in a way to show them that a lot of what I did in India, those skills are transferable. Like, for example, in my case, we did a lot of internal investigations. Now, internal investigations, the methodology remains the same, whether you do it in India or you do it in the US or anywhere else in the world. So I said that I already have that skill set, which maybe a JD will not have because they're just fresh out of law school. And you just have to market your skill set in a way to show them that your experience makes you much better than like a JD who's fresh out of law school.
Right. If you feel comfortable sharing, can you talk a little bit about what your own process was like to apply to the firm where you're working, how you exactly went about it? Because I feel a personal anecdote might give greater insights to anyone who's watching.
Yeah. I think all of us, all our journeys were the same, not just me. I think most of us just started cold emailing partners.
Okay.
So what I did was that I realized that my best shot, I also probably, I thought that maybe if I change my field, everyone told me that you change your field, you're not going to get a job in litigation. which I also understood. So I sent my CV to like a couple of people, a couple of firms, and said that I'm also like, I can do like a corporate job, but they said that no, we're not going to take you for a corporate role because your CV is disputes based. So then I realized that I cannot change my field, and therefore my best shot at getting a job would be to try to get a job within my specialization. So you basically go to these websites called Legal 500, Chambers and Partners, and they rank firms on the basis of practice areas. So you choose firms, say 20 firms, right? You go to the website, you go to the practice area, and you can just filter out people based on practice area, whoever the partners are in New York or DC. You see the kind of work they are doing. If they're like, for in my case, I just saw whoever was doing some cross-border work, and if they had some experience in, say, Asia. And I wrote to them saying that, this is the field that I was working in. I have this much experience. I have, these are my publications. This is my CV. So let me know if this, we can talk about an employment opportunity. And that's eventually how it worked out. Now, it sounds very easy for me to say right now. Like, this anecdote sounds like, wow, she got a job instantly. It doesn't work like that. I think I sent out a lot of emails. There were a lot of people who responded. Some don't respond. If you send your, in litigation, that's the thing. If you send your CV to, say, the HR, she will see the word LL.M and reject you.
Oh God.
So I would say that there's no point reaching to the HR at all. Just reach out to partners directly. If partners will take screening interviews, so if the partner likes you, you will eventually, like, he will eventually send your CV to the HR and say, get her interviewed. And that's how it works. But if you send it to the HR directly, she's not going to do anything. But that is just litigation based. I would say that if people are in M&A or capital markets, or there's another area called funds, I don't even know what they do, but there's something called funds, debt finance. Now, these are really hot areas where people can be, a lot of Indians, like a lot of foreign based lawyers get jobs. If you're in these areas, then obviously your chances are way better. So you should apply directly to HRs. You should reach out to associates and tell them to push your CV. You should see on LinkedIn, it's like people can see where there's a vacancy. So once you know that one particular firm has a vacancy, you can either apply through LinkedIn, or you can go to the particular firm's website and check out which partners are the relevant partners for your practice area, and email them directly. So you can do, so it's a mix and match of a lot of things. I think the cover letter also matters a lot. Just make sure that you are able to highlight your skill set very well. And your most important is how you can highlight what you did in India. How is that relevant to what they're doing here? If you can highlight that, then they'll be interested. If you would think something very random in India, like, say, if you write something like, I used to go to trial courts every day in India, they don't care. Like, how is that relevant to them? If you were going to Tees Hazari every day, even if you're going to Delhi High Court every day, it's irrelevant. So you have to highlight like things in your CV which will make them interested in you. And I think that's the trick. It will take time. It's obviously a very frustrating process after a point, because you kind of like because when people do not respond, you also like try to like, you start thinking that, is it even worth it? What am I doing? Like, I had a great life in India. Why am I even struggling here? Stuff like that. But I feel like you just have to be at it. Eventually something will work out. You may not get like the biggest law firm. You may get a smaller law firm. It may be a foot in the door. So it's definitely a process.
Right. Ma'am, this was very interesting when you said that if someone says in their cover letter that they worked in the trial courts here in India or at the high court level also, it's irrelevant to someone in the USA. And that's very interesting, because India being a common law country and they're a civil law country, I want to know what that transition was like for you, because after studying for 5 years in an Indian law school, working for 7 years as an Indian lawyer in a law firm and in litigation, certain things here in India must come very intuitively to you about the law, about the profession, about courts. And then all of that is not relevant anymore the moment you start working there. So what is that like for you?
It's kind of annoying, and I still call an indictment charge sheet. There have I have said charge sheet, I say FIR, I say like stuff all the time, which is like, not correct. But it's a process. It's I don't think there's any good way of, there's no sugar coating it. It is difficult because you are technically starting all over again, and you're trying to learn the trial methods of a completely different country. And it sometimes it does get frustrating, because you like, what the heck, well, like, why do I not know this? Because you have become comfortable with the legal system of one country to the extent that it comes naturally to you.
Yeah.
And now you start all over again. So it's definitely going to be, there's a learning curve for sure. And yeah, but like I said, I mean, when I joined Khaitan, or when I joined like litigation, when I started litigating, I didn't know anything, and I learned. So we learn here.
No, that's very encouraging, ma'am. Ma'am, you said you work in the litigation side of things over there also. So do you go to courts as well? What's it like for you?
So till now, I have not been to courts. I started like working 3 months back.
Mhm.
Till now, I don't think there's been any matter where we have been expected to go to courts. Right now, I'm also doing, like I said, I do a lot of white collar matters. So a lot of it is document review right now.
I see.
We need to make productions to the DOJ. So for that, you really don't need to go to court, because these are internal investigations that are going on. But I guess eventually, I would want to be on a trial, just because I want to learn what the process is like. I did see quite a few. I was working on some trials while I was at the district attorney's office, but I was just an intern at that point
Oh,
of time. And also I was there for like a very short time, like 3 months. How much can you learn in 3 months? Like, you can get a basic idea, but you can't really learn everything. So definitely I would want to be on some trials. Let's see how that works out. But yeah, to answer, I mean, if you're in litigation, you will be expected to go to courts.
right. That's great. Also, ma'am, how do you compare working in an Indian law firm and now a US law firm? Are they both equally toxic, or is one better
So
than the other?
actually, this is a great question that you have asked. And the word that you use, toxic, is very relevant. Work hour wise, I would say it's the same.
Mm,
Uh, more, more or less, the hours here are also stressful hours. A lot of weekends I'm working, which used to be the same in, say, India also. But on toxicity, I feel like everything here is way more professional. Like, and this is, I speak for all my friends, colleagues, everyone who's worked in India and now who have transitioned to the US. Everyone tells me the same thing, that Indian law firms, I think, are the most toxic. People should give Indian law firms an award for toxicity. Like, for example, just like simple things, and these are all law firms in India. Okay, I'm not just
yeah.
pinpointing one law firm. All law firms are like that. Like, for example, in India, there's this concept of artificial deadlines. The partner, or like someone in senior associate, some principal associate, will randomly tell you, please send it to me ASAP. It has to be done over the weekend, and then it will not get checked for like the next 1 week or the next 1 month, or it may not get checked ever. So you're like, why did I even work? Why did I spoil, say, my Diwali long weekend or the Shera long weekend on this crap when this has never been reviewed? And this happens in Indian law firms all the time. And but here, it actually, I don't think I've been given any artificial deadline till now. And I was speaking to a lot of my friends also who work in different law firms, and they said the same thing. In fact, so many times it has happened when I get work on Friday, and then I tell the partner that, or the senior associate, that, I'll, because Indian mentality, right? We have all been trained in Indian law firms. So I tell them that, okay, I'll give it to you ASAP, and I'll probably give it to you by Sunday evening. And they have told me that, no, this is due by Wednesday, so you don't have to work on the weekend.
Wow.
And that is just so different from India. Like, this is something you'll never hear in India. It's just unheard of, this concept. Then just other things like communication
Mm,
is very different. I think in India, obviously, the communications that we do with clients, that's very professional, and it's all good. But internal communication is so flawed. Like, for example, just the way you delegate work to someone, there is no protocol that you provide. For example, we used to do a lot of internal investigations, and there was no protocol for it. Like, the junior associate is supposed to figure out the protocol, which makes no sense. But
yeah.
here, the first investigation I was put on, they gave me a written review protocol,
Wow.
which was like a 10-page document. Everything is crystallized there. And all the key players, what is the matter background, what are we trying to find out, what are, say, which documents may be privileged, stuff like that. And what is our goal of this internal investigation? Everything is written down. So if you have any confusion at any point of time, you refer to the review protocol, and the review protocol has drafts, like formats of all the drafts. So if you have to make, like, say, a chart of allegations, the review protocol will have a format, that set format that you need to follow. So there's no like lack of communication. There's proper communication. The associate also knows, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do and this is why we're doing this. In India, they just hand you the work and then
Mm.
expect you to miraculously do
Figure it
something
out.
great.
Yeah.
Figure it out. It's like they'll throw you into the swimming pool and then they'll say swim, and if you don't swim then you sink, right? So somehow the associate will learn the ropes, but that's not how it should be done. It's very stress inducing as a junior associate. If you're given like random stuff and told to do the best you can, and then later on, like after 2 3 years, they'll be like, oh my god, your work was like not up to the mark because you didn't do it as per the protocol. And then you're like, there was no protocol, like you should have told me that before. So I just
Yeah.
feel that in terms of communication, just the way people write emails here, like even if there's a lot of mentorship, they definitely give you feedback, which I don't see in a lot of Indian law firms. And the way they give you feedback, the first 4 lines will be, we are really thankful for you for all your hard work on this matter. We understand that you
Wow.
reviewed XYZ number of documents, but 1 2 3, but then they'll end the email with, but thank you so much for working on the weekend, we really appreciate that, stuff like that. So you also feel like that your work is being seen,
Hmm.
and then there's some constructive feedback. In India, there will be no feedback. Okay, if there is some feedback, it will be this, fix this that's the email you get. And then, like, for 1 hour you will keep thinking, what does fix this mean? It's just, Indian law firms are operating at some crazy level. I don't even know. Like, I'm not saying that everyone is bad and I was some great personality who surpassed all these issues. Even I was like that. As a principal associate, I don't remember giving a review protocol to any associate because I thought, I didn't know that this concept existed. But when I came here, I realized that things can be done in a streamlined fashion also, where
Yeah.
there's less confusion and like there's less toxicity. Because if everyone knows what they're doing, there will be no toxicity.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think definitely the work environment is way, way better here.
Thank you for
And
that.
obviously the work as well. And the work as well, because I think the work here, it's an international law firm, so the work is very international.
Hmm.
In India, even if you were doing corruption matters, we were doing domestic corruption matters, right? But
Right.
here it's an international law firm, so we are doing international corruption matters. So that, of course, is very, very interesting.
Right. No, thank you for that really honest answer, ma'am. And I think some of the things that you said really needed to be said. And I'm glad that it's out now because there's not enough talk on that. So, ma'am, another question with regard to working in the US. It's great that the work environment that you're experiencing is wonderful. And I'm really, I mean, wonderful that after going through that grueling process of the bar exam, what awaits you if you manage to get there is something that's quite nice. So that's really
Yeah.
good. But, ma'am, what's it like working as a lawyer, and law all across the West is seen as like this exclusive rich person's club? So to enter there as a person of color in this really, closed kind of profession, what's that part of the job like?
Uh, to answer the first part of your question, I also think that I think you're right. It's a very, I think we all come, people, everyone who's working here, even Indians, we all come from privilege. Because just to back up a little bit, it's one thing to say, oh my God, you have so many qualifications, XYZ. I am pretty sure that there are hundreds of people in India who are better qualified and smarter than me. It's just that they don't have the resources to do an LL.M abroad, especially in the US, which will cost about 1 crore.
Yeah.
You understand? But like I somehow had the resources, so I could probably go to the US and get a job, but they just can't. So I think we should all recognize the fact that more than merit, it's also, there's privilege has a huge role to play in our lives.
Yeah.
Uh, Secondly, I feel that most, see, LLM is also like it's an dispensable course. It's not like if I've not done an LLM, you can't, like I would still become a partner in Khaitan. So LLM technically, but I just feel that once you have the resources, you come here, you study from an Ivy League university. I haven't seen any sort of discrimination based on the way we look, or there's actually been nothing.
That's great.
And yeah, so to be honest, in fact, I think US is way more, what can I say, open and open-minded and liberal when it comes to people of, say, color. And I mean, it's easy for people in India to say that no, everyone's, they may be racist, this, that. I also think that Indians, it's a controversial opinion, but Indians are also super racist.
No, that's a fact.
And
Yes.
yeah, and like if you see, a lot of these top law firms have diversity,
Mm.
and in fact, they have diversity boards. So there are people who look, they ensure that there is diversity,
Yeah.
and diversity in terms of gender, diversity in terms of the country you come from, diversity in terms of the way you look. Uh, so yeah, and I really do not think that diversity is an issue here. Them obviously most of the people are say whites, but even after that, it's a very professional environment, and people really don't, I think, till the time your work is good, they really don't care, at least at my level.
Mm.
Maybe like at partner level it may make a difference, but that visibility I don't have at this point.
Right.
But as like at an associate level, it really doesn't matter.
Right. Now, I know, ma'am, that we're coming to an end of the talk, and I'm so sorry for taking more of your time, but I have two more important questions that I really want to ask. Now,
Yeah.
ma'am, in India, like we've talked about, you had 7 years of experience, and that puts you in a very senior position. When you left Khaitan, you were a principal associate. So then, to achieve all that in India and then to join as an associate in a foreign
Yeah.
firm, what does that do to you in your head mentally? Where does that leave you? Do you ever feel like I deserve more?
So I feel like it's not ideal, uh, but it also works for me in a lot of ways. So it's also kind of twisted because with the same qualifications, if I was to join a London office, I would be considered a mid-level.
Yeah.
But if I join the US, in the US, they discard all your experience, no matter where you're coming from, unless I think you're coming from the UK or something. And so everyone has to start as a first year or a maximum second year if you do M&A or something like that. But it also gives me a lot of leeway, I feel, to ask questions, to ask basic questions,
Yeah.
because technically it's one thing to be doing whatever I was in India, but those things are not relevant anymore, you know. So if we were filing in India, uh, it's not relevant here. And if they tell me to file here, I wouldn't know the first thing about it. Now, if they would have given me seniority in some ideal world where I was a fourth year associate, I would just look like a buffoon asking my juniors how to file. Like, it can't work like that.
Hmm.
So since I'm a first year associate, I still like, there's a lot of leeway that they give you. They say, okay, you don't know, it's fine, it doesn't matter, you can ask these questions and we'll help you out. But there is no leeway if you're like a third year or a fourth year or a fifth year. And that works for me because I think, like I said, in the trial process there is a huge learning curve. Filings happen very differently here, just the way they draft, it's very different. Everything, like they have motions, the trial process is kind of different. So for me, it wouldn't have made sense for me to join as a fourth year associate.
No, that makes total sense. And ma'am, moving on, it's often written about on social media that Indian lawyers who get to work in US earn a lot, but the
Yeah.
reality might also be that the cost of living is equally high. I mean, in New York, it's not going to be like you're living in New Delhi, obviously. So
Yeah.
as someone who's now working in a New York firm, and someone who spent, like, if someone has spent a lot of money on their masters, do you think that the compensation a firm gives you is enough to repay like your student loans and also live a decent life if someone has that consideration?
No, easily. I got lucky a little bit because I took a very small student loan. That's also because I was working in a law firm for a
Yeah.
really long,
Yeah.
so and as you get senior in a firm, you get like bigger bonuses and all that. So I was able to save like a massive chunk for this LLM. And so I had to take a very small student loan. Which I think I'll be able to repay. But even if you take like a biggish student loan, I think with the salary you get here, you can have a good life. And this is like a first year associate salary. You can have a good life and repay your loans. So I think salary wise, no complaints. Lawyers are very well paid in the US. The US law firms pay the most. They pay way more than UK law firms. So
Yeah.
you'll get more money here as compared to UK. But of course, I think the cost of living in UK is a little lesser than what you find in New York. But even then, but I would like I said, LLMs, it's very difficult for LLMs to get jobs generally, in general. Litigation, it's crap. Okay, litigation is really bad, but I'm saying even as an M&A lawyer in LLM, it's kind of difficult for you to get a job. So I would tell students to think very hard before taking a very big loan for your LLM in the hope that you will get a job, because you may not. And if you're taking that loan, always have a fallback option. Like my fallback option was obviously going back and joining Khaitan.
Yeah.
So even if I did have a loan, it wouldn't make too much of a difference. I'll repay it because I was going to go back to a law firm. But say if you're planning to do public policy, in your life, and you take like an 80 lakh loan to go study in the US and you don't get a job, then like it can really get you into a debt trap, and this LLM will really not be worth it. So I would say that financially, just make sure that your finances are secured and you have fallback options, because getting a job here is really, it's not a given.
Yeah.
The norm is to not get a job. A lot of people come here, they don't find jobs, go back. Exception, you can be exceptional and you can find a job. This year a lot of people got jobs, my year, because I think it was the COVID boom. From what I'm hearing now from Columbia students is that again they're facing like issues with getting a job. So depends on the market. Some people are saying recession is coming. All I'm saying is that keep all those factors in mind before applying. Definitely apply for scholarships. If not, US costs the most. US they tell you that it'll be around 80 lakhs. It's not 80 lakhs. It'll be way above 1 crore. But at least minimum 1 crore US LLM. For UK, it's half of that. So UK is 50 lakhs. So if you want, so a lot of people who don't want to spend 1 crore can go to UK. It'll cost you around 50 lakhs. And Singapore is much lesser. I think Singapore is about 24 lakhs or something like that. So keep the cost dynamics in mind before applying anywhere.
Right. Thank you for that really honest answer, because there's not a lot of information about, and you're right, whenever someone's looking up the cost, it generally comes to about, at least on paper, 70, 80. But thank you for giving that honest number.
That's a lie, because in New York, especially, the rent is so high, and then just the living cost is very high. And also, like, a lot of people are doing the LLM for the experience, right? So what is the experience? You also go out, you chill with your friends. You can't always be inside your house. So everything will cost you money, and it'll be well over 80 lakhs. But I'm saying even if you live frugally, it'll be around 90 to 1 crore in the US, which is very expensive, I would say, just for one degree, which is kind of dispensable.
Right. But away from the heaviness, coming to the final set of questions, ma'am, what's life like in New York? Is it as beautiful as we see
It
in
is great.
movies? Right.
Yes, I don't know what movies you are seeing, but I will tell you, great. Right now it's getting super cold, which is an issue because it just gets very, very cold. But apart from that, New York is my favorite place in the world now. It is really,
Yeah.
really good. It's such a bustling city. There's always something new to do every day. And for me, like, I think we also, like, my batch got very lucky because a lot of people from my batch got jobs. So a lot of my friends from Colombia are also here. And therefore, like, a lot of people, initially, some people had told me that, once you live in a different country, you may feel lonely, this, that. So that loneliness factor we have never felt because there's so many of our friends also here. Great city. I feel like even if you go to a different restaurant every day, you will take like you will need like at least 3-4 years to probably like finish all New York restaurants or even more. And so, yeah, it's highly recommended. If not for an LLM, people should definitely visit. It's a great city.
No, that's wonderful. And does the law firm work give enough time? I mean, are the associates able to take out enough time to enjoy beauty of
Of
New
course,
York?
of course. Like I said, its law firm life will always be hectic, but you can work around it.
Yeah.
And the good part is that I think I don't know if this was a pre-COVID thing also, if it's just post-COVID. So we have work from home for Monday and Friday, and we just have to be in office officially on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
Oh,
So it's just
that's
3 days
great.
of office. Yeah, 3 days of office. Otherwise, you can work from home. And even those 3 days are flexible. It's not like anyone's checking, you know. So, like in India, we used to have this concept of FaceTime that you have to be in office all the time to
Yeah.
show that you're a hardworking person. That concept doesn't exist here. As long as you are submitting your drafts on time, people really don't care. And it's also because here in the US, we work with a lot of different teams. Like I'm working on a matter with the London team. I'm doing another matter with the DC team. So it doesn't, for them, it doesn't matter whether I'm in the office in New York, right? They don't care. So
Yeah.
you can just work from anywhere. And that also gives you a lot of flexibility, which means that nobody will be on your head checking what you are doing, when you're doing. If the draft is due on, say, Friday, nobody will call you up or email you before Friday to check whether you are working on that draft or not. So
Right.
you can flexible, you can take out time from your schedule and work accordingly. So I don't think that's an issue.
No, that's great. And now also the holiday season is around the corner with
Yes.
Christmas and New Year coming. So I'm sure you're going to have a lot of time to explore New York. And so, ma'am, coming to the final question, this is a question that I ask all the guests who've been on the show. And that is, would you recommend something to us? It could be books, it could be movies, it could be a song, it could be a TV show, it could be anything at all. Or your favorite podcast, which I hope is Letter of Law shortly after this conversation.
I have definitely not read any books in the past, I don't know, 1 year because just lack of time. I was
Uh,
watching this movie yesterday on Netflix. It's called Don't Look Up. It's kind of an old movie. I think
yes,
it was released in 2021.
fantastic
But
movie.
yeah, I hardly like get time to watch Netflix. But it was a great movie. Like I don't know how I missed out on that, but I think it was a great movie. So definitely watch that.
Hmm.
And I am definitely into a lot of trashy TV because after working for 12 hours, you don't want to watch like I don't know Interstellar.
No, man.
So like I just watch a lot of crap. Like I was watching this what is this new season? It's called Love is Blind.
Okay.
It's just crap. Like it blew my mind. And it's just I think a lot of times when your mind is fried because you have researched on some topic for like 12 hours and not found anything, it's that kind of a show which you should watch after that because
Yeah.
after that your mind will become fresh. I don't even know what is happening in the world anymore. It's crazy. It's on Netflix. You should try
Okay.
it.
Okay, great. I'll do that. And with this, you can come to an end of today's conversation. Susanna, ma'am,
Thank
thank you
you
so
so
much
much.
for taking time out and speaking with me despite your very busy schedule, that too on a Friday morning. This was great, and I'm sure all the viewers will find great value from it.
Thank you so much. This was great.